year. So, it's my intent to present you all a budget that's going to at least bring us forward and also start working on the achievement gap. But it's going to require rating any money that we save this year, and allowing us to put it into, there's three buckets. I understand it's going to be the insurance bucket that we always had as a fund balance, one on technology, and one in special ed that we could distribute and carry money. Three areas that could be pretty explosive in our budget, particularly the medical. I worry deeply about. We're saving half as much per month, and when we open up again, people will be going to their doctors, understandably. So that may just balloon on us. And special ed is always a question for us. And technology, we need help. So we've discussed opening those accounts up and placing money into it. I will caution the board, for you to use that money, you being us, with your permission, we do have to ask the city council. It's not just ours, but the mayor supports us with a fund balance, knowing that we had asked for as much as we did, and this is going to really kind of tie our hands, that we're going to need these fund balances and savings, and we're working on what that is. And it's we didn't really want to put an exact number because it does change. But as we get another week or two, we'll have a better idea, right, Courtney?
Yeah, and that fund balance, the biggest outlier, as you all know, having talked to Joe and spent time with this, the insurance fund. And while we were in COVID, during this close down, like Dr. Sell mentioned, we've seen some really significant savings because people haven't been able to go to the doctor. And like Dr. Sell said, there'll be a backlog. And we may see people, with significant illnesses. We hope we don't, but we've got to set aside. So the city's agreed to work with us to use our fund balance this year, which is mostly related to those insurance savings, which we have another month and a half left to see come in. And if it's coming in as we see it, we'll have a decent amount in the fund balance. That can be set up in the reserve. We're allowed to put up to 25%, as you know. So we're currently at about 17%. So we can fund the difference so that next year we'll have a little bit of extra so that we can balance out those peaks and valleys in the insurance experience because we're self-insured. And then in addition, as Dr. Sal mentioned, the technology, we can set up a reserve with the city that we'd have to get their permission to use, as well as special ed, if we see an increase in outplacements, that would help us. So that's something new that would be great that we can do. No, so, and then the final piece that we didn't mention earlier is the $550,000 from the matrix funding, Dr. Sal. So the city has agreed that we can talk about that it looks likely that we will get that next year, and that matrix funding can be used to offset our Granville lease that we have signed, as Kelly mentioned in an earlier board meeting, for our pre-K, where we're going to put a majority of our pre-K classrooms, not all of them. So yeah, and the fund balance, one additional last thing I would mention about our fund balance is that the city has also agreed, if we pursue a strategy, to give us a one-time appropriation. So not just to put it in reserve, which would be available just on an ongoing, like one time, but in a reserve, but to our appropriation, but it requires the approval of the Board of Finance. So for us to use our fund balance from this year, if we were to get a one-time appropriation for next year. So that's on the as a possibility for one strategy as well.
I know there's questions we started looking at anticipating this, and it'll go without saying, if we have a reenactment of last August, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. And this money for the COVID virus, we are, I guess, participating in some grants. We're hoping to help us. But, if we have to add buses, if we have to add teachers and cleaning individuals, like I said to the mayor, I don't know what we're going to do. So that, we can't just shoulder all of that on the amount here. So there was a recognition for that. If you're saying, what is it you're going to do? We're just going to not fill any positions that we do not need filled. I will tell the board that typically we have 25 retirees, and we do take credit for that in the budget. We currently have 8, so that impacts us as well. The lens that we're going to look at is closing the gap using our funds from the state and the alliance to assist with those techniques, and then place the programs in special ed and support that we need, and try to be reasonable in our class sizes. And then, just keep working on it and put something in front of you to see what you think. So, Kim, I don't know if you have anything to add, or Kelly or Kevin, before I end this part of it.
No,
Anybody?
I don't have anything. Nope.
I do not.
Okay.
Does any board members have any question concerning the budget?
Yeah, I've got a question, Dr. Sal or Courtney. It's very confusing in all your terminology. I look at it, last year, we had two budgets. We had an operational budget where you asked for $11 million. And then you had another, for the first time we put it together, an alliance budget, and we increased that by $2.7 million. So somewhere along the line, you're looking for $13 or $14 million collectively.
Yeah.
If you separate the thing on the operational budget that we put together for the $11 million, you're telling me that we got $1.2 million as an appropriation against the operational budget, number one.
Yes.
You use the word of carryovers. I don't know what the carryover refers to. Does this mean that whatever unspent dollars in the operational budget that we normally would spend by the end of the year, or the excess money we had, we would put toward this insurance reserve? And I think that insurance reserve of $6 million should be pretty close. Is that going to be given to us as a reserve? And then you also have a grant budget where the alliance money is at. So you're commingling, to me, it's very confusing when you're commingling all this stuff. I like to see it in terms of the way we presented the budget so that we know what we're doing. In a nutshell, if we're getting collectively $6 or $7 million with all of the stuff that you're talking about versus an ask of a $14 million, the picture doesn't seem to be apparently that rosy.
Well, it's not rosy, Rich. I mean, we just got that number last Friday and Monday to share it. I mean, what we're going to do is do exactly what you're saying. We have to look at all of those accounts and by sector, how much of the alliance. But you have to all remember, what you take out of alliance can't be serendipitous used anywhere. It's got to go close the achievement gap.
I'm saying there are two separate and distinct budgets. I'm not talking about alliance. I'm just talking about the funding for the $11 million budget that we have so far. Of the $11 million, you're telling me we got $1.2 million from the city. That's and correct. Maybe another 2.2 from CARES that we can utilize against that. So we've got a huge shortfall. You're looking at $4.9 million, which we said were maintenance just to turn on the lights.
No, I realize that. And that's why I said, this is no easy task. We're looking at fund balances. Well, no, we're looking at fund balances to help cobble money towards that and mitigate that amount. And that's where we're going to need the mayor to permit us to do that.
When you say fund balances, I don't mean to
interrupt. Let's make an assumption. Let's say when we end July 1st, we have, based on the savings, not using substitutes, based on money from medical, and we have $2.5 million. I'm going to ask for that to be used for us. But you're not permitted, or we're not permitted to have a savings account other than in those areas. So only legitimate way to do it is to pass it through to those accounts and then say, okay, we're going to need money for special ed. We're going to need money for for benefits, and use that money to help cobble up what you said before and shore up where the 11 million we didn't get, because we didn't get it. We got actually to 0.93%, not adding the not adding the 550,000 from the developer. And we got a lot of work ahead of us. Yes, and it'll be divided that way.
Just to be clear though, Rich, really briefly, but just simply, the fund balance is the city side, the operating budget. So the fund balance is the one that Dr. Sal talked about, our balance from this year. And the carryover is related to grants. It's a one-time thing that the state's allowing with our titles and our alliance funding for this year for underspending. It's a carryover amount. So we have
Okay.
that carryover from the grant and the fund balance from the city side.
So
Yeah.
at the last board meeting, then, to use your terminology, fund balance, we were talking about somewhere about, if I remember, serves me right, about 450,000.
Mhm.
So how did it go from 450 to 2.5 million? Is that the benefit that you're estimating that wasn't used relative to the health insurance account?
Yeah, we're seeing every month, we're seeing a little more than $1 million better than what our budget was in the health insurance during the COVID closure. It's huge. We didn't predict it. And so, yes, to answer your question, that's most of it.
But that can come back to bite you next year when at some point people then want to go and do their normal checkups and things like that. So
Right. Like
Right,
that's what I
right.
mentioned. So
just may get a
we're gonna
double win.
ask to put it in a reserve, and then also, we're going to budget appropriately for it next year as well.
Okay.
But we're trying to, as the board's always asked me to, not to reduce teachers, to keep teachers in front of kids. And now we're to the point where we have to support a lot of the bilingual students and those students that are in need of special needs. So it's quite a stretch, Rich, no doubt. And we'll work more with the mayor in terms of these fund balances, whatever they turn out to be. You do have the COVID money. You have some leasing money and other things that we need. What you don't have is this money we were asking for was taking us to another level. Right now, we're just trying to keep us moving forward and not lose ground. I mean, that's what we're basically doing.
Yeah, I mean, just picture in my mind when the budget was presented, as I said, in addition to the 4.9 for maintenance, you had about 800,000 for Augusto's group, and you had a couple of $1 million, if I'm not mistaken, for the climate, the terminology of climate. But when is it your position to generate some information so that we could, at least meet and discuss what you're looking to do? I'm not looking to rush you, but it's just for myself in terms of a timetable, is to, now that you got this information, what
Well,
do you
I would hope sometime next week you want to have a finance group. That's fine. Like after next Wednesday, Thursday, I'll ask Courtney. We started doing some numbers, and we're just working through it. Next week would be, we're about 4 weeks behind because we haven't had a number.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I
that's-
understand.
yeah.
I'm not.
But we'll try next week to have a finance committee meeting. So at the next board meeting, we'd have some real, some real tangible things to look at, because we're not certain. Other than, we're not going to, as you said, climate. Well, we can't do that. But the Augusto stuff, parts of it we have to do. And special ed, parts of it we have to do. There's some we'd like to do that are not going to get done. Things like that. But we need to, I think next week, Courtney, unless you have a different time frame, I'm looking more towards maybe Thursday, but that's up to you.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. We made some, we can certainly have things prepared by then, definitely.
Okay. Whatever, at your convenience. I know you got 1,000 things to do, so
Well,
I'm
this
not
is the
looking to
most
rush you.
important now.
Just give us a timetable, and then we'll see if we could go through and understand this and evaluate what has to be done.
Understood, Rich. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
I have a couple of questions, if I
Chuck?
may. Courtney, make sure I understand the conversation you and Rich just had, and some of this maybe I'm not as deep into the detail as Rich. We asked previously for effectively about a $9.95 million increase, correct?
Correct.
And we're getting 1.2.
Correct.
Mhm.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say percentage or millions?
Dollars.
Millions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're right. Yes. I'm sorry.
Okay. I went to law school because math wasn't my major in college, but even I can tell that's only slightly more than 10% of what we asked for. Correct me if I'm wrong. What we're getting doesn't even hold us harmless for carrying on what we were doing this year, correct?
Correct. If we didn't have if we didn't have the fund balance and the carryovers and the grants, which we're going to use to braid to do things that we need to do for next year, that's correct.
And
Yeah.
the COVID money.
And the
So
COVID.
functionally speaking, what this is this is a budget cut by the city of Danbury.
I mean, we've been talking with the city and in awareness that they're going to work with us to have funds, from our fund balance, and in awareness of the carryover from the grant funds. They're hopeful to work with us to make sure that we have what we need for next year.
But I'm just trying.
But yes, you're right. Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure I have it right. The fund balance savings is money we stumbled on because of what happened this year in terms of what we saved. And the CARES Act money is money that was legislated by Congress.
Correct.
So in terms of what the city of Danbury doing is they are effectively giving us less money than it would take to operate our schools at a bare minimum and carry on this year's activities by a significant number.
Yes, if you're considering just the city operational funds and the city budget, that would be
Right.
Yeah, that's correct.
One other
Also,
question. You mentioned the-
Joe, just think of, pardon me, Joe, just think last year come September, this year, September, we asked for, Dr. Sal asked for a special appropriation of $1.2 million because of the increase that we had in enrollment. The 1.2 million allocation we just received basically covers only that. So you look at it, there's no increase.
I have a question. You mentioned, Courtney, the matrix money,
Mhm.
and that we should be able to use that next year.
Mhm.
Query, that was part of our budget for this year.
Yes.
How are we making up the fact that that was, correct me if I'm wrong, that was part of the money we were supposed to, that was contemplated in what we were spending for academic year 1920, not 2021, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So that didn't come in this year.
It did come in. So it came into us as an appropriation. The city may or may not have received that revenue, but we were able to spend the funds that were associated with that this
We
year.
got the money for the, okay, excellent.
And
Thank you.
Joe, we should get it again next year.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because we
as long
asked
as we
that
get it, I'm
question.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a good question.
Are there any other questions for Courtney or Dr. Sam? Okay,
So Gladys, I guess what we're going to try to do is get a finance committee meeting next week, work on some of these things, and then I hope at the next board meeting we'll have something much more substantive for everybody
Okay.
to look at.
okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, we have. Let me just turn my page here.
Did we pay an update?
Yeah, we have the reentry plan. You heard Aaron in the beginning. We do have a plan. Do we have a plan? I'm sorry. We have a committee, a reentry committee now. It's a core committee, and that committee will expand out to reaching out to other folks. It's just you can't have a committee of 900 people, but we have a core committee. And Kevin, maybe you want to talk to the board a little bit about what you're thinking and what we're doing with it.
Sure. And I will start with the points that we heard earlier from Erin, because she was absolutely right. There's certainly going to be a need to drill down further in the organization to make sure we have the feedback from the represented departments. And so as everyone on this board might imagine, I'm hearing from a lot of folks saying, hey, when can I have an opportunity to represent my department, or we have some ideas as classroom teachers, et cetera, and I understand and appreciate all of them. This initial phase, this is our second meeting. We have a meeting tomorrow afternoon, Security and Safety Committee. And so we have the chief of police, the fire chief, the person in charge of the Department of Health. We have our district physician, and then of course our district nurse and Kathy O'Dowd. And then a number of district representatives, including, as Erin had mentioned earlier, someone from those two major bargaining units, the admin union representative and the teacher representative unit. And so this initial group, this first level group, if you will, is really to get the feedback from the experts in the field to give us some guidance on what we can and cannot do right now, right? And so firsthand guidance from our district physician and Department of Health around clarification around the guidance for bringing kids into school. What is best practice if we're going to be bringing kids and kids to schools and teachers to schools on a modified basis? And so we need to make sure we understand, given this uncharted territory, making sure it's clear what the questions are and the things that we need to answer as a district. We are envisioning this moving forward to drill down further into the organization. Right now, we don't have elementary representation up in, to inform what an elementary schedule could look like. We don't have high school representation to represent what a high school schedule could look like. And so we recognize that those folks are going to need to be at the table. In addition, we need folks from our PE department, our music department. If we're going to be in school on a modified basis, certainly we're going to need protocols to address instruments that none of us necessarily have the expertise to speak to. So we'll make sure that those folks are at the table. And that's just an example. Just going back to our last meeting, which was April 30th, I think this is the first time I was in the meeting and we wrote notes for a meeting that had question marks all over it. Like all of the notes were essentially question marks. And I think that speaks to the uncharted waters that we're going into. But, there were questions, all of the questions that I think our community is asking, they were asked in this meeting on April 30th. And what we have done in preparation for tomorrow's meeting is put together a draft plan in response to all of that feedback. There is guidance coming back nationally. The White House has a blueprint for reopening schools. We've seen some other plans that have been released from other states, and then a handful of districts around the country have also released plans. And so all of those plans have certainly informed ours. Our plan is there are a number of links. Sal and I had talked a couple of days ago and love the fact that there's some research in there that's going to help inform some of our academic decisions. And then the rest of the plan really talks about safety. And we're going to take every precaution necessary to make sure our staff and our kids are safe. There are a number of options out there, from a staggered schedule to A/B schedule, to some type of hybrid, and we will certainly be exploring all of those things. But no matter what we do, we will not have kids and staff back in the school without all of the appropriate safety precautions and protocols in place, which is why we have the experts in the room helping us land on the appropriate mitigation strategies. So we envision tomorrow we're going to have breakout. We'll have like 20 plus people on a call tomorrow. We will have breakout sessions, breakout groups virtually for the 20 people on the group, and get feedback on our plan. I'm anticipating that this draft plan that folks will be looking at, there'll be considerable adjustments to the plan, which I'm hoping for and anticipating. And as we get further guidance from the state and further guidance over these next few months, I feel comfortable and confident we'll have something that the community feels safe. They would feel good about sending their kids back to school.
Just so the board, because it was brought up, we started about 4 weeks ago, ordering supplies for next year. So just want you to know we've done that, but no way. And we ordered, I think, enough of what we think we're going to need if we have to provide, everybody needs PPEs, whatever. But I don't know if they have any questions of Kevin. Do you know which board members are rep? I'm sorry.
Mr. Russo.
Mr. Russo, okay. I have nothing else, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We move down to information. Do you have any additional information, Dr. Sayre?
No.
No? Okay. So the board chairperson report. My report is very briefly. The evaluation committee met on Monday and to discuss the annual evaluation process. And given the challenges presented by the current pandemic, the closure and the tremendous time and attention involved in the move to distant learning, we determined that this year it would be most appropriate for us as a committee to use the CAPS recommendation and superintendent evaluation form. As was suggested last year, it was suggested last year. And to narrow the focus to 4 areas that are set forth in the superintendent goals. Those 4 areas are: number 1, family, school, and community partnership, planning for growth. Number 3, accountability and organizational learning. And number 4, college and career readiness for all students. The committee sort of decided that we are going to recommend a narrative for
Do we just lose her?
Looks like she froze up there.
Yeah, I think so. There we
please
go.
let me know.
Gladys,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. Your signal cut out about partway through that last sentence. If you could just repeat it, please.
Actually, Gladys, your signal cut out right after you said college and career readiness, the last bullet, if you can.
Okay, the last bullet was college and career readiness for all students. Okay, so we have the other, all 4, right?
And then there was one more sentence after that, Gladys. College and
So
career
we're going
readiness.
to, the board will be recommending a narrative this year. Okay, we're going to use part of the form and we're going to be making it into a narrative in those 4 areas that I just mentioned. And for all board members, we all have the superintendent evaluation form. And if you don't have a copy, let me know and I'll make sure Carol gets it to you tomorrow, so you can have a time to look at it and digest it. Okay. Secondly, I just want to thank the committee members, for coming out. And those chairs, Joe Britton had a committee meeting, Rachel had a committee meeting, and thank everyone for putting forth and having board members of the committee express their concern. The last thing I sort of want to say, I want to appreciate everyone because I believe we should work together. And I know some people don't like to be called on at last minute. And I thank Rachel, and I had talked to Kate earlier, and I asking you to please read your information. And if I call you, ask you to make a motion, it's just have everybody participate. So that's my only thing, okay? And it's not gonna be the same people all the time. This is a new year, we want to do something different, and I want people to participate, okay? Thank you. If I don't have anything else, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Motion, who made the motion?
I said so moved.
Okay,
Oh.
okay, so moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all so very much.
Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jumping all over the place, and you just wreck someone.